It's getting better lighting.
Great. So we are live now. And so that means anybody can come back and watch this video at a later time. Okay, so first of all, welcome to Gary and Olivia, who decided to join us, and a special welcome to Eva, who has very graciously agreed to join us to be our reader today. And so, Eva, tell us a little bit more about you and where you're from.
Okay, hi there. I'm Eva. I'm 31 years old. I'm living in Palatinate, which is a region next to Mannheim, which is in the southwest of Germany, like 100 kilometers south of Frankfurt. I met Mark in Toronto when I was a pupil at ILSC 10 years ago. And when I went back to Germany, I started studying economics. Then I worked at Lufthansa for about 6 to 7 years as a financial accountant. And now I'm at a German police for economic investigations, economic crime, something like this. Yeah.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah. But don't be nervous, people. I think her remit only goes as far as Germany.
Yeah.
So you should be fairly safe, unless she contacts Interpol. Okay, I just realized that the T-shirt I'm wearing is
it's great. I love it.
Which was a complete accident. See, this is my summer. It's my summer camper van T-shirt, and I thought, well, it's definitely summer now, and it's time that I got this out of the wardrobe. And then I just realized now, it's like, oh yeah, we're doing German. So there you go. So I guess I can use this as a link into this, because the way that you would pronounce this word in German, well, I'll ask my German friend to pronounce this for us.
Volkswagen.
Volkswagen, yeah. So of course, the first consonant being a voiceless labiodental fricative, like we would spell in English as an F. So folk, which is of course the same word as the English word folk, meaning people. And Wagen, of course, starting with a W, which is pronounced as a voiced labiodental fricative in German, Wagen. And so this, of course, I mentioned this because it is relevant to some degree when you have a speaker of any other language as their L1, in this case it would be German. There are inevitably going to be certain features that come through from their first language into their second language. Now, what I should say is that Eva is an advanced speaker of English. And so I guess that's why you got to be my student, because I was teaching a lot of advanced classes at that point. Which, out of interest, which of my classes were you in?
It was something with advertising. We did a lot of these. Do you remember these trash posters we did, for example, for Subway?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we created some. That's right. We created some advertising that we went out and we pasted them around my neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
And
Subway, you told they ripped it off immediately.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So I'm sure I've got a picture of it somewhere on my Facebook, but yeah, I remember now. So that would have been like a high intermediate to advanced level. So
it's still at my Facebook. I can link you there after the session. And
oh, cool. Great. Yeah. That'll give us a bit of context there. Okay, cool. So, so obviously Eva, even 10 years ago, was an advanced learner of English, but of course there will be certain intonations and certain rhythm patterns that will come through from German, even though she has a very good command of the phonemes, or in other words, the speech sounds of English with lots of practice and usage. Okay, so without further ado, let's get stuck into the poem, which is at talklikeThat.com. I'm just typing it in now because I don't have it up. So talklikeThat.com/MMMM. So 4 M's in lowercase. And underneath all the instructions, there should eventually appear the poem. Does everybody have it up? I don't. Okay, great. All right, so as per usual, I'm going to ask everybody except for Eva to turn off their microphones, just mainly so that you don't have to be, self-conscious about your version of the German accent, and also so we don't hear any dogs barking or cats meowing in the background or your dinner's ready. And just Eva and I will have our mics open. And as per usual, I'll ask Eva to read. She'll read one line, and then I'll give everybody time, silent time, to repeat it as they heard it to themselves, and then I'll point out any features that I hear. Oh, great. So we've got another person, Natalie. Hi, Natalie. Okay, so Natalie, we're just about to do the read-throughs. Okay. All right, so let's start with the first one. So this is a poem by Heinrich Heine, who was a German poet, and the poem's called "They Loved Each Other." That's the English translation. And forgive my German, but the original is "Sie liebten sich beide." Is that correct?
Sie liebten sich beide.
Yeah, that's even
Nearly.
better. Yeah, nearly. I was almost there. Okay. All right. So let's start with the English translation line by line.
Okay, they loved each other. They loved each other, but neither.
Okay. So I'll point out a couple of features there. So there is in the word other and neither, you'll hear that these in Eva's version, in her accent, she dentalizes what in standard forms of English would have dental fricative or voice dental fricative. And in other words, in Eva's accent, it becomes a voiced dental plosive. So almost like udder, but it's not udder. The tip of the tongue doesn't touch on the alveolar ridge. It's still on the teeth, but instead of being a fricative, it's a little bit more like a plosive, where the tongue becomes udder, or neither. In some accents, you'll hear udder and neither, so that it is more alveolar ridge. And in other accents, in other speakers of German as an L1, you'll hear a completely different phoneme, so that it will become aza, a nisa. And so, oh, by the way, Eva, do you say neither or neither?
Neither okay. Or nor. Yeah.
Okay, and the other thing that's worth mentioning here is that depending on who the person is, like where they learned English, that's going to come through into their accent as well. So it will likely be an RP-centered version of English or a North American-centered version of English. In Ava's one, the reason she knows me is because we met in a school where I taught here in Toronto. So you will know that by the way she says neither, that is a North American pronunciation, as opposed to somebody who learned English in Britain is more likely to hear neither. Okay, so thank you, Eva. If you'd read the next line.
Would admit to the other they could.
Okay, so again, there is the dental plosive there for they instead of they. And you might also hear a little bit of devoicing. I'll explain what that is. So devoicing, of course, is when the voice box vibration switches off so that it is not voiced anymore. So this would mean that in a word ending with a D or any voiced consonant, like at the end of would and could, you might hear would or could. So it sounds a little bit more like a T, an aspirated T. And this is a feature that comes through from German. Somebody's joined us. Okay. Hi, Barry. Okay, so we're just on the second line of the poem here. So so that's another feature that often comes through from German as a first language, is the devoicing of consonants at the end of a word. Would, could, in that second line there. Okay. All right, next line, please, Eva.
As enemies, they saw each other.
And could you say it one more time?
As enemies, they saw each other.
Okay, just give people some time to repeat that. As enemies, they saw each other. Enemies, notice that in enemies, the second syllable of enemy is the first syllable and second syllable both are enemy. So in some speakers of German, the schwa sound instead of enemy might become full vowel enemy, possibly. So as enemies, they saw each other. And I'm trying to think, are there any other features in there? Nothing that stands out too much. Another thing about German as an L1 is you find that the rhythm can be quite different to English. The rhythm tends to be a little bit more steady. The intonation pattern tends to be quite level until you get to the last part of the sentence, and so that's intonation observation. Whereas the syllables are a little bit more stable and tend to be a little bit more even compared to the way most English accents are. Okay, let's go on to the fourth line.
And almost died of their love.
Okay. And almost died of their love. Okay. So here you've got love. So in this, the vowel in love is a little bit further back. In this case, it's a closer approximation to the in most English accents of love. But this one's a little bit further back. Some German accents, of course, especially for beginners, you might hear love. Laugh instead of love. So this is not a typical type 1, but if you're going for something that is more subtle and you're not going for your show me your papers kind of approximation of the usual terrible what's the word I'm looking for, like the usual stereotype German, like stage German that you might get in a stage version of Allo Allo. So it's more subtle here, love, and it's further back and not forward, that you might hear from a beginner learner of English from German. Okay, thank you, Eva. Onto the fifth line, please.
In the end, they parted and only.
Right. And actually, could you do that along with the next line, because they run into each other the way it's translated?
In the end, they parted and only saw each other sometimes in their dreams. Oh, in dreams, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's fine. I got to hear dreams twice. You'll hear that there's also I didn't give people. I apologize. I didn't give people to time to repeat that. So I'm really sorry. Could you say it one more time?
Yeah. In the end, they parted and only saw each other sometimes in dreams.
Okay, great. So in the end, they parted and only saw each other sometimes in dreams. So you might also hear there in the even in the dream in the D in dreams is D voiced as well. It's not quite dreams. It's not as strong as a regular T would be there, but it is D voiced so that it doesn't. There's in a German accent, usually a German person speaking English, there's not as much buzz in the speech patterns, right? What this means is there because the voicing tends to, or I should say the devoicing tends to be more happen more regularly in places where it wouldn't be for a standard speaker of English, or most L1 speakers of English. There isn't as much buzziness. So, for example, you wouldn't hear dreams so much, but more like dreams. So it starts with what sounds like a very soft T as opposed to a D. And there's a couple of reasons that this could be. One is because Traum, I think the word is Traum in German. Is that right?
What do you mean?
The word for dream.
Traum.
Traum, yeah. So it starts, this is the other thing. Those two words are obviously cognates. They're the same word
But
that have taken
in
different.
Germany, it's with a T.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
Traum is with T. Yeah.
Right, right. So it's so that could be one influence as to that. But the other thing, of course, even if it's not in a cognate word like dream and Traum, it's there is a lot of devoicing that will happen even at the beginning of a word, as well as at the end. And also, you may have heard some of the what I was explaining in the rhythm pattern as well. Okay, so the last two lines, please, Eva. Actually, just do the penultimate line for us.
It was long ago they had died.
Okay, it was long ago. So here we have O and a go. Quite often, you'll hear in many German speakers of English will have a monophthong in the O or the A, as in the word for day and the word for no. Quite often, it will be a monophthong, so day and no. It's slightly different for Ava. Hers has become a diphthong. Not a very far traveling diphthong. It's not O, as some learners of English might do if they'd gone through the RP system of the UK. Eva, where did you learn English initially?
In school. And in the
Oh, in
beginning,
Germany.
we in Germany in school, but when we're like 10 years old, we start to learn British English, but it's changing into American English the older we get.
Mhm.
But I think the influence of my time in Canada is way bigger than my school English.
Yes, yes, exactly. And so this, of course, will as to what kind of German accent that you're embedding into your character will of course depend on your character's history too. Like let's say if you're playing a character from, okay, I know it's stereotypical, but if you're playing a character from Germany in the 1940s, then the model that they're going to have is usually going to be an RP1, or like what we would now call a conservative RP. So that will be a good base for like a wartime version. But if you're going for something that's more modern, then what Ava was explaining is going to give you a lot more options as for the base that you want to give it. Okay, so we've got one more line left. Okay, Eva, when you're ready.
Um, but they scarcely knew, but I scarcely knew it, it seems.
Okay. All right. But they scarcely knew it, it seems. So you can hear that from Ava's accent, and of course, it's a poem that we're going from here as well. So, and as you know, poems don't have the regular kinds of speech patterns that we would expect to hear when somebody is conversing. So when we're talking to Ava, it's going to be a little bit different, right? And you'll hear certain tendencies that come through from the L1. Okay, so I'm going to ask Ava to read the German version of the poem, and at the end, or rather, while you're listening to this, listen for any sounds or patterns that you think might be I'm trying to think of the word, not indicative, but you might hear in her English, even though her English is very close to what you'd expect of a very high advanced learner of English to speak. But see if there are any sounds in there that you would normally hear from a German learner of English, not necessarily Ava, but from another speaker. Okay, Eva, I'm going to get you to read the German version for us now, and just read the thing all the way through. Don't stop
Okay.
at the line.
Yeah. Sie liebten sich beide. Sie liebten sich beide, doch keiner wollte es dem anderen gestehen. Sie sahen sich an so feindlich und wollten vor Liebe vergehen. Sie trennten sich endlich und sahen sich nur noch zuweilen im Traum. Sie waren längst gestorben und wussten es selber kaum.
Okay, so Livia, what, you're dying to say something. What did you want to say, Livia?
Did not get one word. Did not understand anything.
I know sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to believe that English and German are sister languages, right? But the thing is that of course German is a more linguistically conservative language than English and has very different history compared to its sister. But even though there are lots of words, Germanic words, as we call them in English, Germanic words that we still have in English, a lot of those we chose to replace those with the words that we borrowed from the invader, the Norman French, right? So that's what happens when you're trying to keep up in the world and you're trying to sound like you're on the side of the conqueror, right? So you lose your old Germanic words and then you just sound like a English person messing up the French language, whereas really you're just incorporating it into the language and then calling it English. Anyway, I digress. That's another one we borrowed, I think, from French. All right, so question time for Eva or me. So you can ask Eva a question or ask me a question. Entirely up to you. Who wants to go first? Is that Gary? Gary preps for a question? Oh.
Where are you from exactly, Eva?
Well, it's a small village with about 13,000 inhabitants. It's called Mutterstadt, which is translated into mother town. And it's next to Mannheim or Heidelberg, 100 kilometers south of Frankfurt, southwest of Germany. Yeah. Okay. A lot of wine around us, a lot of vegetables. Yeah, pretty nice.
Nice. I know there's a lot of variations in the accent. Germany's a big place, and yeah, that's why.
Yeah, I was just laughing when I was reading the German poem. For example, the word they loved each other, which is sie liebten sich beide, and the ch, like in sich, feindlich, endlich, and in my dialect it's like sich, Feindlich, endlich.
That's interesting. So is that more of a is that like a more of a like Bavarian area down there?
It's not yet Bavarian, but it's going into there.
Hmm.
So there's a bit of space between Palatinate and Bavarian, but long time ago, Palatinate was part of Bavaria. So
Hmm.
a part there are a little bit, how do you say, rests.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, there are lots of different accents all over Germany, and if you look at the graphic that I included in the invite to this, that map that I put in there was just to give you a taste, really, of the variation across the country, or I should say countries, because when we're talking about German accents. What I mean is the accents of people who speak German as a first language, because of course German is spoken natively in not just Germany, but as you all know, it's also spoken in Austria and a large part of Switzerland too, where the accents are really different, and that of course will also have an effect on how they speak English as well. I don't know if you heard, and I don't want to make Eva sound too self-conscious at this, but the word village and vegetable were now. This is something I'd be correcting her in if she were still in my class 10 years ago at school. I'd be saying it's village and vegetable. Um, but what's happening there is a kind of what I understand to be a kind of hyper correction, linguistically speaking, because even though like German does have both the v and the I believe that most dialects also have the w sound in there. What can sometimes happen here is a hyper correction, so that whereas some speakers will say village and vegetable and what is your name and where are you going, right? So they might have the voiced dental fricative for those. In other cases, it might be that the w sound, where the lips don't meet and it's still voiced, but then you'll hear village and a vegetable instead of village and vegetable. So it's kind of a hypercorrection where they all then might sound that way. So that's it. So if you're doing a German accent, that is another option based upon whatever depending on where your character is from and how long they've been learning English and that kind of thing, and whether they've come back to see their old professor and take note of any corrections that he makes. Okay, cool. So let's see. Livia, I think you had another question? Yeah. So
I have a question for Eva. And maybe it's kind of stupid, but anyway, I wanted to know how difficult was it to learn English from German? Because I was German in school, and then I was like, okay, that might be too difficult to learn. And I have relatives in Denmark, which is kind of similar to German. I don't know if I'm stepping the line, but it's kind of, they have that same kind of accent that when they're learning English, they have that of course. That that's more guttural, more in the back of their throat kind of thing. So, like, did you find it more difficult to learn English or to learn growing up learning German?
Well, first thing is when I was 5 years old, I already was able to read and write easy words, but there was no place in kindergarten for me. Because everything was cool. And so my mother sent me to an English class for small kids. So she was like, you have to do something, you have to meet other kids, but there's no place. So I started to learn English pretty early. And then I went to school from the first 4 years, from age 6 to 10, and there was no English in school, but I still visited all these classes in my free time. And then in class 5, when you're like 10 or 11 years old, then you start to learn English. And it's just, if you learn something every week, 1 hour every day, it's just you're getting better, and it's I think it's easy to learn. And my interest was big. Every time we went to in holidays with my parents, like a foreign country or something, English was the language which helped me to communicate with everyone. So for me, it was clear my English has to be good or should be good, so I can travel the world and can communicate with everyone. So for me, it was not that hard, but I think if you ask different people, they'll give you different answers. And the other thing is, English is of course, all our TV series and movies are in German, but the second language is English. So if you want to see more and read more and listen to anything, listen to like CNN or BBC News, you have to know English. So for me, that it was just like I need it. I definitely have to be very good at it so I can get more access to everything. Yeah.
Good answer. Okay. Are there any other questions for Eva? No, Mary has no questions. Natalie? Oh, okay, great. So, what was I was going to say here? Yeah. So, one other note is that you might hear in the nurse vowel in most German speakers the nurse vowel, or nurse if it's RP, usually will gravitate to the German vowel that is usually written with an O umlaut, or it could be O with an E, but modern German it's O umlaut with the two dots, which is yeah, there you go. Thank you for doing that for me. Yeah, so quite often you'll hear nurse or nurse. It will be, so that means that it's going to be more forward, like in the position of but with the rounded lips. So nurse, somewhere around there, or a bit lower, nurse. So but with rounded lips. And so that is that because that is the closest vowel in German. There is no vowel that is centralized there. So unless somebody like really works hard at getting the vowel or and in most cases there's no reason to, because people are perfectly understood by using the closest German vowel. Then that will be a distinctive feature of most speakers of that speak with that accent, is a feature of the accent. And of course, like I always say, every month we do this. Don't forget to go to IDEA, which is a great accent resource where you'll hear lots of people from different parts of Germany, and I believe there's Austria, definitely parts of Switzerland as well, where you'll be able to hear samples there on IDEA, the International Dialects of English Accents resource out there, and which is a free resource, and it's really great to hear different versions. So that's a place that I would normally point people in to go and listen. And always make sure you're listening for people that, if you're learning for a character that you're doing, I mean, of course, if you're a screen actor like Gary, or stage actor like Livia or whatever, then of course you're going to be looking for someone who, from that particular period, whether it's modern or a certain time, somebody who is, a female, if you're a female, or if you're playing a male, someone who's male. So basically someone who is going to be relevant. That doesn't really play out for someone who's reading, like a book narrator, like Natalie or Barry or so on. Obviously, that doesn't really apply. But if you're going to be in front of the camera playing those, then you need to get somebody who's like approximately your age and also your gender, because accent is also affected by gender at different times as well. Usually, females are early adopters of new sounds, and so you'll see that a snapshot at any given time, usually the male's pronunciation is going to be a little bit more conservative. But then when it comes to L2 accents like German or whatever, that may not be quite as much of a thing. Okay. All right. So how are we doing for time? I think we're at 36 minutes and we've gotten through it already. So if there are any questions for me about German accent or anything like that, or any advice or anything.
I just have another question.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So I noticed that when you say udder, like it was like other, like instead of other, you put the T and the H together, the udder. Is that like a?
Is that a question for me or for Eva?
For both of you, is that like a typical?
I'll.
So like just looking at the poem again, and it's like.
Yep. So udder, this is
They love.
I think I mentioned before for that TH sound, for the voice TH sound, the dental fricative. It really depends on who the speaker is, where the speaker is from. I know that Eva is from the southwest part of Germany, which is approaching, well, it's in the southern half of Germany as opposed to the northern half. And this may be a reflection of it, because I know that a lot of Swiss German speakers that I've come across will say udder. Like all the time it will be udder, mudder, as opposed to maza and aza. So this may be the reason, I don't know. So more of a dental plosive, a voice dental plosive that sounds a bit like a D in that case, as opposed to an alveolar fricative like maza and braza, right? So mother and brother, more likely there. But of course, like I say, it depends on the person.
So I always think of Mike Myers and some
Austin
Powers, where he's like saying that I'm your Faja.
Faja, yeah.
Like, and his accent was totally off the wall, right?
Well, most of his are, but I think Mike Myers, his Scottish accent is probably the best one, especially the one he does for, like the watered down one he does for Shrek, because he grew up with Scottish parents, like a lot of people in Scarborough. Yeah. Right? Like I had Scottish relatives in Scarborough too that had lived there since they moved out from Scotland in the 1960s, before I was even born. And then when I met them, the first time I met them was here in Toronto or in Scarborough. You would never believe they had even been outside of Scotland. It's amazing. It's just like it's like a tight-knit community of Scottish people right there in the middle of the GTA. It's unbelievable. So
yeah, so I guess that depends too on like where you're from, like because like what his accent was saying, like I'm your Faja.
Well, like, Faja is very weird. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say Faja for father, but you might hear, for some German speakers, it might be Faza, like with a Z. Yeah, Faza. You might hear Faza. That's not the case for Eva. She says Fada, right? So it's more of a tap, more as opposed to a fricative, more of a tap, Fada. But again, like I say, it depends on the person, their experience, and so on. Gary, you had a question?
I'm just curious because I've been really really interested in the Austrian accent, and it seems to have this sort of a musicality to it, and I'm wondering where that comes from. Because it's definitely German, but it's there's a weird fluidity to it that doesn't, I don't hear in your general German accent. I'm wondering if you know where that influence comes from.
Well, I'm gonna ask our. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, Ava, by asking you, as a German speaker, what is your overall impression of the Austrian accent?
For me, the Austrian accent is just, it's like cute. It feels like holiday. It's, if they have a few words we don't have in Germany, and if they say these words, you were like, okay, you're from Austria. Sometimes, if they are trying to speak like High Austrian, you probably have problems to divide between Bavarian dialect and Austrian dialect, but the souther you get, or more eastern, next to Hungary, their accent gets stronger and stronger, I think. But it's just, I like it very much, but I'm far away from speaking like them or able to interpret this. Yeah.
What about the like the intonation patterns? Like, when they speak German, do they have a more musical lilt to the way they speak it, or how is it different to how you might speak it?
I don't think they speak German like we do. So there's no big difference. In Germany they speak just like they do in Austrian, and you just have to ask for a few words they're going to change. So
like Erdäpfel.
Yeah, but
For
see,
Kartoffel.
the German word is Kartoffel,
Yeah.
but in my dialect it's Krummbeere.
Oh wow. Wow. That would be
So
really confusing. Yeah.
Yeah. But there are a lot of words for Kartoffel in Germany in different dialects for potato, and it's also tomato in German is Tomate, but in Austrian dialect I think it's Paradeiser or something like this. Let me just have a look.
Yeah. So, and again, like I said, if you're gonna, I believe there's some examples of Austrian speakers in the. So what is it, tomato in Austrian?
Paradeiser. Like it's completely different, and I think it's much softer. They are rolling the R. So
Yeah,
I
the
don't
R
do
is
this.
different, right?
Because I don't do this, but in Bavaria they're going to start to roll the R. Yeah.
So would it be das Rhein?
Yeah.
Rhein, yeah.
So I can't do this.
It's so what I'm doing there is, and I know I have a map of this that plots out where this sound is in Germany, and it's not just Germany. There are other languages where they have this as well. It's called a uvular trill, and basically the uvula is the. If you were to look in a mirror and open your mouth wide, and you can see that little dangly thing there, and it's attached to your, looks like, your tonsils, basically, that's your uvula. So a uvular trill is when, like, the back of your tongue vibrates rapidly against the uvula. So ra, like this, ra. So rein, raus, ra. So that's feature of Austrian German, right? Some Austrians might say it that way for ra.
Yeah. I think all of them.
Right. And then, but in Germany, it's more likely to be an alveolar trill, re, like that, right? So rein.
For me, it's rein, raus.
Rein. Ah, okay. So then that is rein. Yeah. So that's a voiceless uvular fricative. So rein as opposed to rein.
Rein, raus, richtig.
Yeah. So that's a voiceless uvular fricative. So it's
You
more
know,
as opposed to
German. I think German is a language with a lot of hard consonants. Like I think the best example is butterfly, and it's Schmetterling. and
Yes,
and
yeah, I know what you're referring to. It's a meme, right? That's the meme where it's got all the different languages, and it's like butterfly, and then what's the French one? It's got all these different words for butterfly, and then it's like the last one is the German one, and they're like Schmetterling, hospital, l'hôpital. And then all these words, and then it's Krankenwagen. Like, oh no, that's ambulance. That's l'ambulance, ambulancia, Krankenwagen. Yeah. So, and of course, that plays up the whole thing. The whole.
And it's also if some of you know the band Rammstein. Of course, they're doing hard music, but if you're not used to German language, I think it sounds much more harder than it really is.
But then, I mean, that is kind of a stereotype of German, and like there are as many different ways to speak German as there are different towns throughout those countries, and it can sound so many different ways, and it can sound harsh from certain people in the way they speak it, and it can sound absolutely mellifluous from someone else. So that's something to remember, of course, when you're doing a character with a German accent, that it's like you have to try to let go of the stereotype of, where are your papers? That is the real stereotype that we've grown up with in movies, where it's been someone who isn't German playing a German, their interpretation of it. So yeah, thank you very much, Eva. It's been a wonderful exploration into the German accents, and also into different versions of German as well. And so if there are no other questions, I'm just going to give you one more opportunity for anybody to ask any questions. Okay, Eva, thank you very much, and
thanks for having me. It was so much fun too.
A lot of fun for us too, and thanks everybody else for showing up and participating. Okay, thanks guys. Before we go, I just wondered if there are any suggestions for next month's accent exploration. None, really?
I mean, the one that comes to mind for me would be Irish, maybe
Irish,
Dublin.
Yeah.
Dublin.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
Okay,
it's something I've been looking into, and I'd love to sort of have like a Liam Cunningham style accent under my belt.
Oh, Irish. Okay, like Dublin specifically. I think Irish was the first one we did.
Yeah.
But it is something I don't mind going back to. I think we did it twice. I think we did it. I think we extended it.
Variables, though, isn't there? As with all languages, so yeah.
Yeah, I think we extended it. But I do know some Irish people that I could bring into this for sure.
Cool.
So
I had an audiobook where one of the characters was from Dublin. I took a mighty big swing and a stab in the dark at that. Okay.
Okay, cool. So Irish, Dublin. Okay, I can set that up for next month, I believe. And great. And in the meantime, things to listen to. I'm trying to think. There's a band that's really popular in the UK. I know they play them a lot on BBC Radio 6, which I listen to quite a bit. But I can't remember what they're called, so that's not very much use, is it? But they're from Dublin, and it's a great example of an emergent, modern Dublin accent. I can't remember what they're called. I don't know. Eva, do you know?
No,
No.
no idea.
I thought I'd ask. You're a young person, so might be. But no one's heard. No one's heard. Okay, I'll find out for next time. Anyway, I'll give you some homework to do. Okay, thanks again, Eva. And yeah, if you still want to join the group, I can bring you in, and you can come to more of these another time.
Sure.
Okay, awesome. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for
Thank
staying
you.
up. Thanks for
Bye.
staying up so late, Eva.
Oh, no problem.
Oh my gosh, what time is it there?
It's 22:50, like nearly 11 p.m.
Wow.
Oh wow, okay. Good night.
Yeah.
Good
And
night.
you got some sleep. You got work in the morning?
Yeah, but honestly, I'm not going to bed until 12 o'clock, so don't worry.
Okay, thanks so much. Okay,
Thank you.
bye everyone. See you next
Thank
month.
you. Bye.